Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. Pleasure to have this conversation with you, Ajay. So I've had the privilege of interviewing C.K. Prahlad also. Uh, and very interestingly, I also once had a conversation with his daughter, who I think somehow seemed to take forward his thinking and ideals pretty well. You wouldn't expect that. Let me ask you a flip question just to get things interesting. You've talked about A being greater than R. What happens when R is greater than A?
You fail. Because, you look at what's happened in the last few years. Too much money has spoiled startups. So I very strongly believe they should not get this kind of money because they just won't know how to manage it.
And how do you, in a period of excess, who calibrates and what's the outcome of this, this sort of playing with excess resources? I mean, what does it do to the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurs, managers, job seekers, policymakers?
Well, actually, what it really does is that you are making sure that people who deserve money don't get it. And a lot of people get too much money. And as a result, there's a whole bunch of startups that get left behind. So I think there is this whole issue now that you need to look very deeply at how each and every startup is running their business. Earlier, there was so much talk about unicorns and this and that, and we got just carried away as a country. I think that's history now. We should stop talking unicorns. We should not bother about we have 100 or 200. How does it matter? I think we need to have good companies that can be run well and are profitable.
So let's go back to 1980, and you set up a company along with, or rather you were part of a group of 6. So take us through that whole period and what made you focus on hardware at a time which clearly no one thought about hardware. And you also went to Singapore, which was again a sort of leap of faith in many ways. So I'm assuming most people here haven't read the book. So do walk us through that journey.
So actually, 1972, I was first batch of DCM data products, and Shiv Nadar and Arjun were already there. And they decided to select 10 people to join the company. And I was one of those 10. Hundreds and hundreds of people had applied for that job, but I was very lucky. And interestingly, I got 3 job offers at the same time, and I had to select which one. So I happened to select DCM data products, but I said, look, I've done electronics, maybe I should join this company. And as luck would have it, if I hadn't joined, there would be no HCL, and I wouldn't be part of HCL. So, these are the kind of things that happen in your life. And when we got started, we had one dream, and that was that at that time, the microprocessor was just making its appearance. So we said, why don't we take the microprocessor and change the world? And that was the way we started the company. So it sort of transpired at that time that there was just 100 computers in the country. And the opportunity was so huge that we felt that this would be the ideal time to get started on designing and making computers. And at that time, no technology imports were allowed. So obviously, we had to, develop everything ground up.
So let me dwell on that a little bit in the form of a question. So if at that time you were thinking of taking the microprocessor and building something with it, what would be the equivalent today of something as audacious?
I would feel AI. How about picking up ChatGPT and doing something with it? It's just appeared.
Is that as audacious?
More audacious, I would think, because there's just so much you can do. Interestingly, I have a side story on this. A friend of mine asked ChatGPT when my book was launched, and they asked ChatGPT, will you write a review of this book? And he sent me that book, a review. And I said, this is not bad. And a few days later, I decided, I asked ChatGPT, write a review of the book. It was totally different. So I sort of learned that ChatGPT is not there as yet, but it's learning very fast. And I think it's going to change the world.
So that's a software answer. What would be a hardware answer?
Hardware answer, I think, would be around quantum. Because as quantum computing really comes around, it is going to revolutionize everything. And that's something that's already happening. And what quantum is doing is that with a quantum computer, you can break any existing security of any organization. So imagine a quantum computer from China breaking the security of a bank in India. And that would be a disaster. So what's actually now happening is that people are now coming up with quantum security. And that is going to take care of this.
Right. So at that time, now today, if you say ChatGPT, everyone here knows about it. Everyone knows about it. So how did you even think of a or how did your team even think of a microprocessor as a target? And then tell us about what happened next.
You see, when we were in DCM, we were already experimenting with this. So we were very much aware that the microprocessor is going to be there, and faster ones are going to be there. So those days, when we made our first computer, it was a 4-bit microprocessor. Can you imagine? So that's how it all starts. We had the knowledge of DCM, and we felt that if we were able to create something with a better microprocessor, that when it comes around, 8-bit, for example, we would be able to actually go after the commercial market. And that commercial market at that time was dominated by IBM and ICL in India.
So how did you get that confidence to say that, okay, this is the product that is selling from IBM, let's say, which is coming from overseas, and you're here, which is with only intellectual capital and some drive, to think of something that could be a hardware competitor to a global major?
Interestingly, IBM was not bringing its latest product to India. They were refurbishing a product and bringing it. And it was very old-fashioned. But IBM being IBM, they could sell anything. And so we decided that we will come in at that particular time. Little did we know that next year, George Fernandez will come in and ask IBM to leave. So these are things that happen in life. And it just happened to us too. And so suddenly it opened up the market in a very big way.
But you had competitors as well in India,
Oh,
right?
yeah. DCM was still a big competitor. ORG was there. Nelco was there. A whole bunch of companies. So we always had competition. As a matter of fact, when we completed 10 years of our company, 20 years of our 25 years of our company, we actually had a celebration to say, competition is great for you, and let's celebrate competition.
So one of the threads that's there in your book consistently is salesmanship, or the art of salesmanship. So tell us about why you've spent so much time on that, including in your book, and what you can tell this generation and perhaps this audience. But how do you apply that to this era?
I've always had this belief that salesmanship is a life skill, and it's absolutely essential for anybody to succeed. Whether we are, whether we are child, we are always selling to our parents. Whether we are a student in a class, we are selling to professors. So we are always doing some sort of selling. And selling is not something that comes to you naturally. It should be taught. And if it can be taught, anybody can learn it. And when I meet young CEOs, entrepreneurs of startups, and I always tell them, if you are not the best salesman in the company will never succeed. And the other thing that I tell them, if you're not a good salesman, how are you going to manage salespeople? So I think these are all things that one learns as we, when you start. But one of the key things that we did in HCL was that we had absolutely the best sales force in the country. And some of them are sitting here. They've all come here to meet me today. And why did we have such great salespeople? Because we knew how to select the right salespeople. And we used techniques by which we could figure out which of these people has need for achievement. And that I've described in my book also. It's a McClelland's theory, professor from Harvard.
Right, and you ask a lot of tough questions and some trick questions. Tell us about some of them in your interview process.
Yeah, actually our interview process was quite interesting. We would typically ask somebody who came into the room and say, sell me this pen. And that's how the whole story would start, where he or she would have to actually sell a pen. And we would ask all kinds of crazy questions, and we would make sure that we corner the person and see what the response is like. And if the person can actually right then and there conjure up a right response, we knew he was the right person or she was the right person. And later on, Rocket Singh, that movie came around where they used exactly this example, and we got to know that the script was written by an ex-HCL guy. So these things are part of history.
And one of the things you've said is that in your book is that, and even I would naturally think that salespeople are extroverts. And you've argued that actually it's the other way around. I mean,
Yes.
you have to be a better listener.
Yes.
So tell us why.
Actually, all the time people think that sales guys have to be glib talkers. They don't need to be glib talkers. They need to be great listeners. And the more you listen, the better strategy you can develop. And that's something that I learned early days because I was not an extrovert. I was an introvert. And therefore, when a lot of people asked me, how the hell did you get into sales? And I said, I wanted to get into sales because even when I was applying for jobs, I didn't apply for any technology job. I only applied for sales and marketing because that's where I wanted to be.
And how did, you were selling to many industries at that time, and I think you describe in your book you were going to a boiler company in the morning and a textile company in the evening. So how did you, one is marshal your resources, your knowledge, and secondly, what were those experiences like when you were selling to these companies? What would they react, and how would you, do the sale?
Very early days, I learned that, and I was taught by masters like Shiv Nadar and Arjun Malhotra. They were brilliant. So when I was, trying to sell products, one of the things that I absolutely clearly understood that you don't need to sell a product, you need to sell a solution. So even when I was selling calculators in DCM, and I was going to all kinds of crazy places in Maharashtra because I was posted here, and I was going to all the sugar mills in the state, and I figured out that the chemist needed a specific formula, which they had trouble actually calculating stuff. So with that formula, I would actually input that into the calculator and show it to them that it works, and that's how we used to get business. So that's really what it's all about: how to convert a product into a solution.
And was it on one of those trips you came back in a truck? You hitched a ride in a truck?
Yeah. See, you would land up in, small little place like Rahuri or any of those places in Maharashtra. And literally, you are waiting for the chairman of the cooperative society to meet you. And the chairman actually walks in at around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, after his siesta. And you're waiting. And you sort of, that time, go to him and explain to him, and the chemist comes along with you. And after about 1 hour of discussions, he says, okay, let's go buy. Buy means the clerk has to write the order. All that process takes 1 hour, 2 hours. By the time you're done, it could be 7 in the evening. By that time, there's no bus going back. So the choice is only that you hop onto a truck which is returning from the factory and go to Mumbai. And so I've had this crazy experiences of traveling back to Mumbai on this truck. And suddenly on the way he stops and he says, I'm feeling very sleepy. And so he goes off and has a nice sleep, nice nap for about 2 hours. And here I am just sitting around waiting.
And swatting mosquitoes and flies, I'm sure.
And also very scary because, it's all very late at night and dark all around, and you're the only truck stopped on the road.
And I'm going to come back to the sales process, but tell us more about this. Having gone through something like this, which I'm sure a lot of people don't need to go through unless you're in a consumer products company and you're forced to or pushed out into the hinterland. How important is this in the way you finally become, or in the way you've formed your own personality? Or
It teaches you a lot of perseverance. Because, you're just waiting there for getting a decision. And you can't go back without that decision. You can't go back without that order. Because you're not going to go back to that sugar factory all over again. So you have to go and get it done. So I think that's the main thing that it teaches you. Next thing it teaches you is that don't ever miss the opportunity. So if you spot the opportunity, you go all out to get it. So when I discovered that one sugar mill was able to buy, we went to 30 sugar mills and sold the same solution. So how do you replicate that solution and get more business more quickly. And that's something that you learn quite a bit like this.
Right. So, and as you look at bigger deals and more institutional deals, tell us about some of, and it would be nice to know when you've lost and when you won big.
Well, actually, a very interesting story in Singapore, where we were fighting IBM. And we were trying to sell to two polytechnics, and they had a requirement for about a couple of hundred IBM PCs. And we were just launching our engineering workstation at that time. And so I went to meet the principal of the institute and said, "Why are you guys buying IBM PC?" So they said, no, that's the right product for all our engineers. I said, "But don't you know something called an engineering workstation? That's meant for engineers." So they said, "We don't have any idea what you're talking about." So I gave them a spiel on what is an engineering workstation. And I also didn't know enough at that time because we had just started selling the product. So then I said, "Look, you are using MS-DOS, which is the operating system IBM uses. This product uses Unix, and Unix is meant for engineers." "Ah, okay, tell me about Unix." I didn't know anything. So I came back and I said, "I'll send you some literature, etc., and you read it up." So I went back, I went to my office in Singapore, and I started calling up AT&T at night. And trying to get through to somebody in AT&T those days, such a big company, and it was all dialing the number. It carried on and on for hours and hours. Finally, I found a character who told me, "Yes, we have created a video on Unix." So I ordered that video on Unix. The video arrived in a week. I made copies of it and went to the engineering college and said, "This is what is Unix." So, you sort of create a business where none exists. And that, I think, is what salesmanship is all about. And then what I do next is that still they were not satisfied. So I went to the UK and I met two people who were actually using that product in UK. And there was this guy called Ken Royal, and I went and met him. He was heading the organization there at Oxford. So I actually booked myself into the top hotel in London. I could ill afford it, but I called him for an interview. And I said, "Come to this hotel." So he came, and he just came to see me. As I started chatting with him, I convinced him to move to Singapore. And that's how we got the deal. So, you got to do crazy things to actually win. But you really feel good about it at the end of the day.
And what's like a deal that you really chased but you've lost?
All right, I don't remember many. Okay, so those are the ones to forget. Sorry, I really don't, because frankly, in HCL we never lost deals.
Right. So when you were chasing a deal or you are chasing deals, what is it, the satisfaction and the objective? Is it the deal itself? Is it the larger cause of the company? Or is it maybe the technology and keeping, and the fact that you're selling something that's either different, like the Unix example, or was it something else?
You see, when we got into the system integration business, very few people in the country were doing that. And in a system integration business, you have a very complex solution you have to put together to help the customer. And that is really where we scored, because we brought in all the right technology and we would get deep into discussions with customers about what we can do for you as a solution. So till then, our largest deal was maybe 10 or 20 crores. Suddenly, overnight, you're trying to sell a 600 crore deal. And that makes it very different, because the sales cycles are long, convincing is hard, and you have to talk a lot of technology. So those kind of things take time. But then when I was leaving HCL, we won the largest deal of this country, which was around 2,000 crores. So, from 20 crores to 2,000 crores is a hell of a journey, and it really is fun.
So the target you're saying was the size of the deal for you mostly?
Size of the deal. Okay. Because those days, size of the deal really became important, because, nobody had done it in the country, nobody had done it in HCL. For me to do it was brilliant, because my team actually created the deal and made it happen.
Right. So you've talked in your book also about balancing life. And I remember, in the 90s, there were a lot of articles in Data Quest and so on about burnouts. and I'm sure HCL led the pack there. But how do you look back at that phase? And I mean, was that a valid concern about people, chasing targets incessantly and then burning out?
It just didn't ever happen in HCL because we kept the momentum going very strongly, and our salespeople were clearly incented to win, not for money, but for making it happen. And the commitment of our salespeople was very, very high. So in a hardware business, when I was running the hardware business and your margins are so low, you can't afford to pay the right salaries, etc., you'll be surprised that 6 years in a row, despite not paying the best salaries in the country, we were the best employer in the country, in the industry. And that only happens with commitment. That only happens with conviction. That only happens with making people believe that this is my company. And we used to call it pride, passion, performance. So if pride is there in your company and the country, we brought a lot of country into it. So in my book, I talk about a concept that we created, which was called Mind India. And we always used to say that the Indian mind is amazing. And we used to get the top people in the country to come and talk about the Indian mind. And I always give this example. You go to an American university, why do Indians stop them? There's something about our mind. So I used to tell my customers, if the Indian mind can do this, we can make the best computers.
So you're saying that there was no work-life balance in the sense because work was itself so satisfying for those who used to work with. Okay, but you also say in your book that you spent a lot of time pursuing the arts and including music, yes. And that was your way of finding balance. Absolutely. So tell us more.
I think that's the right way to look at balance, rather than trying to see work-life balance. I think if you have a range of activities that you like, then you should not just remain in that one vertical that you know. So when I founded IIT Hyderabad, one of the things I told the director, I said, I do not want students coming out of here to be nerds. I want them to be proper human beings. So we first created a minor in entrepreneurship, which I used to teach. And the second thing that we did was that we created 36 different little subjects. For each of these little subjects, a student could get a credit. So something on art, something on music, something on dance, something on theater, something on literature. We wanted students to be well-rounded. And we believe that that is really what is required for any person to be successful. You don't have a worldview. You're just talking about just one subject. You really can't survive. And it also burns you out because you only thinking about one thing.
So is that something that, in your case, did you, pick things as you went along? Were you inspired by someone?
It just so happens that even in college, when I was just, in my first year, second year, I was very fond of space technology. So I would always be writing to NASA. In those days, there was nothing called internet. So I would write letters to NASA and ask them to send me pictures of all the spaceships. And my whole room was filled with pictures of space. So I was very, very enamored with space travel. And I write in my book too, I also used to imagine that I can fly. So I don't know how it happened, but I used to think I could fly. And the third thing is that when Armstrong landed on the moon, there was nothing called television those days. So I was listening on the radio, and you were really trying to tweak the radio to be able to listen to Voice of America. And I do remember that, I heard what he said at that time. So it's great.
Right, and let me ask you about your post-HCL, your life post-HCL, and also try and connect it back to the time in Jabalpur and the college that you said, I think in your book you say you went back several times to do something. So in your post-HCL career, I don't know whether you've defined objectives that you want to work on education, you want to work on entrepreneurship, or have you just followed and picked up things that appeal to you?
Well, actually, during the last few years of HCL, I was already chairman of IIT Hyderabad. And I was also getting to be a member of Indian Angel Network. Although when Indian Angel Network was being originally set up by Pradeep Gupta and Saurabh, they wanted me to join at that time, but I was too busy doing HCL. But I had clearly decided that I will spend time on startups because I love teaching and I love entrepreneurship and I love mentoring people. So therefore, that's how I naturally got into startups. I naturally got into education. And then, of course, I wanted to give back in a lot of ways. So I started working with NGOs. I happened to read in one time that there was a big Nirbhaya happened. And
Yeah.
when Nirbhaya happened...
You mentioned that in the book
yeah,
as well.
so when Nirbhaya happened, I happened to figure out that there was this organization called Save Life Foundation. And I rang them up and I said, I want to meet you guys and understand what you're doing. And then I joined them and started supporting them. And that change is what I'm after. So my last chapter describes my dream of what I want India to be in terms of product nation.
So not to simplicize it, but why is this not happening? I mean, you've referred to the value addition, right? I mean, we're saying we're adding 10% value addition and making mobile phones, and obviously one reason is we don't have semiconductors in India. But even if we did, and whenever that happens, and that's a battle that you're also fighting, I'm assuming, we still have a lot of problems. Why is that?
You see, the challenge that we have in this country when you look at electronic hardware is that we didn't ever pay attention to creating a component industry. And that is a very big weakness.
So is that something that someone on top should have done, or should it have been a young Ajay Chaudhary who should have taken that challenge?
Well, actually, I don't think I could have done that because setting up an industry is quite a task. But the government sort of missed out on this, number one. And number two, the area that they've missed out recently is that everything make in India is, if you manufacture in India, it's called make in India. That's not good enough. We need to design and make in India. We need to buy components in India. Then only we can add value in India. Unless we do that, then we are not creating a proper industry. Because tomorrow, if all these incentives go away, somebody will move off to Colombia, somebody will move off to other countries who offer better incentives.
But you're still saying that it's a policy problem.
Yes.
But, and if that, so somewhere you're arguing that we need to have that policy direction, and because we don't have it, the entrepreneurial ecosystem will not pick it up?
You see, it is to work from both ends. Entrepreneurs are the ones that actually create things. And if you look at startups, the kind of work that they do is quite mind-boggling because we see startups pretty much every day. But if you look at the policy end of it, the current thinking is that let's scale first, which is good. We are creating jobs, we are doing manufacturing, we are scaling. But we need to very quickly move towards value addition in India. And I think that's the change we need to bring about, which is something that Epic Foundation, which I've set up, our whole objective is to make interventions to make such things happen.
Okay. So I'm going to come to questions. Does anyone have questions? Okay. So I'll start there. But just one last question. So you actually went with a friend of mine, Anjali Bhargava. She's a journalist, and so you traveled to Ranchi, and you drove 3 hours out into a village. So she told me then, and this was I think before your book came out, that she was quite surprised and impressed with you at your age, relative age, having undertaken...
I was the oldest out there.
Yeah, and having undertaken that trip only to experience what was happening.
Yeah.
What made you do that?
You see, I sort of contribute to an organization called Nudge. And Nudge is very much involved in looking at removing poverty in the country in the next 25 years. So they were actually creating a program which is called BRACS, which is based on a Bangladesh strategy on how to remove poverty. So I wanted to actually experience the impact of that in a village. So we actually sat down in the village and experienced that by talking to various villagers there. And I was quite surprised to see the change. In one village, it was year 1. In another village, we were into year 3 of the program. In year 3 of the program, when I was asking the Didis, as they are called, they said, I said, how much money do you have in your bank account? And this lady turned around and said, I've got 20,000 rupees. You know, that's amazing. That they've gone from absolute abject poverty to having 20,000 rupees in the bank account. So, you know, this change that I wanted to see myself, whether it really works. And then the other one I went was year 1, so I could see what kind of interventions were required to go away from poverty.
Yeah, as I read that, it struck me that your title of the book applied as much to them as it does to maybe someone, passing out of engineering or, yeah, go ahead.
First of all, heart full of gratitude for providing us this tool to become better entrepreneurs. So you talked about your journey so far, and one of the things I was trying to absorb is that while in the current entrepreneurial landscape where we're trying to adjust our present based upon the emerging future, you created future by perfecting the opportunities you had in the present. So this landscape is where, there's so much of confusion, things are changing by every week. How do we as entrepreneurs align ourselves to the purpose better so we're able to serve better, we're able to add value better rather than worrying constantly about the emerging future?
You want to give a line about yourself?
Oh, so I am Pooja. I'm into conscious change management. So I facilitate change management within organizations through immersive meditative experiences and by increasing the frequency of the organization to 540 hertz, the frequency of gratitude.
Got it. Okay.
So in my book, I call it noise to signal. In electrical engineering, when you hear a noise, you know that next it will be a signal. So in the life of a company, if you can catch an idea at the noise level, you'll be far ahead of the rest. And that's really what it's all about. How to stay ahead, to be able to anticipate where the market is going to go.
Okay.
Thank you for that fascinating talk. I'm Govindraj Ethiraj. We manufacture industrial chemicals. So I empathize and I admire your interest in manufacturing. As you know, sir, manufacturing is a minefield in India, whereas software, without any of these other rules, regulations, has made abundant progress. My question is, with AI coming to the fore, how important is the hardware for processing the AI software? And do you think this chip plant which Vedanta was going to be making, I think is not taken off? Will we be making the chips, and by when do you think that will happen, if it happens?
You see, AI is going to literally impact everything. So if you look at this fabulous company called NVIDIA, in the last 1 week, they've already crossed $1 trillion valuation. It's never happened before. Why has it happened? Because their chip is absolutely the perfect product for running AI. So hardware is going to play a huge role because faster and faster and faster products are required to run AI. Now coming to the semiconductor part of it. Semiconductors in India, there's a lot of misconception that we need the latest semiconductors. Absolutely not. We need higher end nodes, as we call them, 28 nanometers, 40 nanometers, etc. And these are required for products that we make today. We don't need to make, we don't need processors for a phone. We need for the washing machine. All those products out there. So that is where the government has taken the decision to go towards that. The challenge that India is facing is that the whole world wants to set up semiconductor plants. But they want to set up the latest, we don't want to set up the latest. So that's really how we differentiate our need. And our policy today is that we will pay you 70% of your capex when you start. Now that's what makes the decision very tough for the government. Because they're very scared that if they take the wrong decision, they'll be hauled up in parliament. So that's why it's taking time. But it will happen.
Just a follow-up. Do you think government functions will get outsourced to AI? Because then we'll see a real transformation.
I would love for that to happen.
So
if
evangelize
there are
that,
any,
sir.
I'm sorry if there are any consultants out here. When I go to government and I see, and I tell them, from Epic we can do this for you. They said, no, but we've got E&Y. Or we've got PwC. So I said, I always say that, are you going to outsource your brain?
So this, I'm going to. So this TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, is actually pushed people away from 40 nanometers to 28, isn't it?
No, TSMC is in the latest. They are
Right.
not there in the high nodes. They are the world's most advanced semiconductor company. And today they have a queue of people wanting to get them to make their products. Because they've got just so much business.
No, I think the question was that by saying, I mean, this is not the forum for this, but by asking companies to say focus on 40, which is obviously a generation behind, at least 10 years old, yeah, many generations, versus 28 nanometers semiconductor chips, which is obviously more contemporary. Are we losing the,
No.
We're not, okay.
Today we are already at 5 and 3.
Yeah, no, in India to manufacture.
India, we don't need to manufacture 5 and 3. We don't make phones ourselves.
Okay. Yes, I'll come back.
So I'm Ranjit Shahani. I'm in the caring and curing business, more popularly known as the pharmaceutical industry. Industry needed by everybody, but liked by very few. My question is, there is the center, there's a state, and there's the entrepreneur. What weightage would you give each one of these to make India a successful, epic hardware nation?
Well, actually, the challenge that I have seen in the last few years when I started EPIC was that I was trying to influence the central government. I was also trying to influence the state governments to adopt this whole idea of making India a product nation. And in that, the entrepreneur has to play the major role, because they are the ones that will actually do all the innovations and the designs for the country. So I think all three need to work well. The challenge that happens is that the central makes the policy, the state has to implement those policies, and states are still in a lot of ways living in the past. You know, you talk to any state and the first thing they will tell you, Acha, why should I come to your state? I'll give you free water, free this, free that. Nobody's interested. People are no longer interested in land and water and stamp duty nonsense. They are interested in ease of doing business. And you rightly said, running manufacturing in this country is a pain. I've run it for 30 years. Every day there is some pinprick. So if you can make ease of doing business happen, then I think we can be exceedingly successful, and that's where the state governments have to play a role.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about design. Are we planning semiconductor design in India?
We are planning both. Semiconductor design has been going on in India for a very, very long time. Today we have close to 150,000 engineers who do semiconductor design, but we do it for global companies.
Right.
It's all export oriented.
So actually we need not depend on foreign design or technology for that.
Not at all.
And the related question to that is that when a semiconductor factory is being set up in India, possibly it will take 2 to 3 years.
4 to 5 years.
4 to 5 years.
If it's a silicon factory,
Right. So,
if it's a compound semiconductor factory, maybe a couple of years.
fine. So in that time frame, would the design and technology of the semiconductor keep changing, and will the factory then have to keep changing that before they make the final product?
No, that's not necessary. What we need to keep changing is the manufacturing technology. And therefore, what we have been talking with the government is to set up an R&D institute which will actually work on creating processes for manufacturing. And that is what is required for it to be successful.
And the machinery will remain constant.
Yeah, it's not going to change too
It's
much.
not going to
No,
change.
no, no.
Okay.
Because we are working on older nodes, as we call them, 28 nanometers, 40 nanometers. And
Okay.
that's very, very, very established technology with established processes and established machines.
Thank you.
Here, yeah, I'll just come back, yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sorab. In the beginning, my name is Sorab. In the beginning, you were talking about easy money being for the current entrepreneurs. I just wanted to expand, I request you to expand a bit more in terms of you make a raise, you obviously make people get that money based out of an idea. You have the unicorns, but you're also seeing multiple stories today of good products and companies that have reached a certain stature and then losing focus on the product by virtue of the fact that the money is not being managed well when they have received it. And we're seeing various So just wanted to just understand a little bit more about governance when it comes to giving money as we move forward to entrepreneurs and to other angel investors.
You're absolutely right, because a lot of us as investors made that mistake of not looking at compliances in an organization. So I'm deeply involved with Indian Angel Network, and we started a process a couple of years ago, 3 years ago actually, where every quarter we ask every startup to give a list of compliances signed by the founder and the finance guy. Unless we start to do things like this, we are not going to be taking care of our money. The other thing that I want to mention is that in a lot of organizations where monies are given, there are not established businessmen who are actually part of their investment team. They are finance guys. They are not business guys. So the change that we need to bring into our system is to make sure that in our VC system, we have business guys who actually sit and take decisions about giving money. Then what will happen is that with their experience, they'll be able to figure out where things are going wrong.
Okay, Atul Nishar.
Yeah.
Hi Ajay.
Hi, Atul.
When I founded Hexaware in 1990, you were a very well-known figure in the whole industry. The software industry was a tiny, very, very small industry, hardly known as an industry in 1990. But the industry grew phenomenally. We all know now. You being a stalwart of hardware industry and also visionary, why did you never think of moving into software business?
You see, interesting thing happened to us, and we were forced to move into software because early, around 89, 90, we decided, McKinsey came to us, and we were the largest IT company in India. McKinsey came and said, we would like to do a project with you. So we said, sorry, we can't afford you. So they said, no, we'll do it pro bono. So we selected a project, and the project that they selected was to look at all our hardware products and see whether there is one or two products which could be taken globally. So we said, my God, I mean, we are so young, how can we be going global? But they said, no, wait. So they wrote a report. And that report said that one of our multi-processor Unix machines was so brilliant and so good, and the Unix that we had written for it was so great, that it could be taken to America. So they gave us a report which said, how do you crack America? And they gave us an entry strategy. So we took this product, we set up a factory in Silicon Valley to manufacture computers. Well, it's like gold to Newcastle, but that's how young we were, and in a manner naive we were. We borrowed 5 crores from ICICI, somehow landed up there, set it up, got business. We got really going very, very well actually. And suddenly we discovered that one of our customers who had ordered a huge piece got bought over by another company. That destroyed one very large order. The other thing that happened to us was that we had not taken into account that the power supply of our product was not adequate for the United States frequency regulations. And that pretty much killed our hardware business in America. So what do? We've borrowed 5 crores, we've got to do something about it. Immediately we took engineers from our R&D, and they then started to work within R&Ds of different companies. And that is how our initial, that terrible word that was used those days called body shopping started. And that's how our entry into software happened. That was the first time. The second time it happened was that when India had no foreign exchange and we were making hardware and we couldn't import a thing, that's when we realized that we should also be in the software business. And that's how our story into software happened. In our case, software, when HCL was just 400 crores, Shiv Nadar came to me and said, you run hardware, I'll do software. And that's how we got into software, much later than everybody else. And today we are third or fourth or whatever we are in software.
I'll come back. Yeah.
Just Aspire seems to be
I'd love for it to happen. Can you make it happen for me?
Someone else at the back, yeah. Then I'll come back. Go ahead.
Why don't you get up, please, so that everybody can see you? Yeah. Just aspire. Okay, it'll happen.
Ajay, I am right now talking to you as an author. So what inspired you to write the book? And when you were writing the book, did you ever imagine you'll be at the quorum launching your book?
Not at all. It's Ria who convinced me to be at the quorum. And, well, actually, one day about 4 or 5 years ago, I was sitting around chatting with my grandsons. And they were asking me, I always used to tell them stories at night before they went off to sleep. So I was putting them to bed and reading a story. And suddenly, this kid gets up and says, you know, I've been hearing all these stories that you actually make up. They're not real. Can you tell me a real story about you? So, next few days, I was telling them little stories, snippets of what I did in life. And that sort of got me thinking, if I'm telling my grandchildren what I've done, why don't I tell the world? And that's how the book happened.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just come back. Last 2 questions, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm Uday Chatterjee, and I'm a small sort of foot soldier in the Indian startup ecosystem. And my question to Ajay is that, you know, all great organizations have some near-death moments. You know, we know about the Infosys story and many other. I think even IBM had their near-death moment at some point. So did your organization also have some near-death moments?
Many, because if you don't go through that, you don't learn anything. So, you know, when we went to the US and our business suddenly dried up and we had nothing left, we had to very quickly pivot. And pivoting is what makes a success happen at certain stage. The other thing that happened was 1991, when there was no foreign exchange left. How do you actually run a computer company? And there was no money available, nothing happening. So we went and found friends, global friends in Hong Kong, and made them open LCs for us to buy components to make computers. So, you know, it was absolute near-death experience.
I think I remember that moment. I think Mr. Vaidya was the one who went in the...
Yeah.
Mr. Chaudhary, if you were to, my name is Shubham Mukherjee. If you were to start HCL now, what would you do differently? And the second question is, you know, what would the future of technology look like, let's say 15, 20 years down the line?
Well, if we were to start HCL hardware business today, we would really make a global hardware company. Because all the policies are there, all the capabilities there, the brand India has been built. When we went to Singapore to manufacture our computers, and that was in 1980, and we were pretty much first man on the moon, because not many people have ventured outside the country. And when we used to go to customers, they used to think that Indian in Singapore, that corner shop wala, that was our image. What did software do for us? it created brand India. And then pharmaceuticals and a whole bunch of stuff. Today is a different ballgame. Today, nobody doubts an Indian. If there is an Indian in any company, it's bound to be successful. And that's the way it is. So, if today I was to start HCL, I can make it a global company in hardware.
So I think, yeah, okay. Very quickly, okay, yeah.
I'm making it very quick. Thank you for coming and talking to us today. I'm glad I had this wonderful opportunity to hear you. I'm Kanika Kapoor. I'm in the business of helping people create wealth by managing and investing their money. And I heard you say that I think startups are receiving too much money. And I agree with you, the valuations went absurd in the past few years. But I do, from what I gather from your talks, I do believe that you see AI as the future. I do too. I mean, if I'm planning a trip to Switzerland also, I'll ask AI, what do I do there? But what I want to ask you is, would you personally invest into a startup which is into AI? And if you would put your money into an AI startup, what would be your evaluation criteria of that startup?
I have already invested in some AI startups, so it's something that I'm already doing. And in terms of the evaluation criteria, today it's made it much, much more difficult than what it was 6 months ago when I was investing. Today, after the appearance of ChatGPT, things have changed. And there's a lot that you can do with this technology than you could ever think you could do before.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see such kind of companies that will come around to you for investment, which you never even thought existed. And I think these ideas will make it so much more interesting to invest.
So look
Right.
at more unique ideas?
Sorry?
You look at very unique ideas in AI?
Yes, yes, yes. How to use AI for the benefit of society. I think that is really where we should be looking. The other end of it is how to use AI to be a terrorist.
No, no, no. Thank
Okay,
you.
so I think we've run out of time. Thank you very much. So as we part, you know, a lot of people have come on a Saturday evening to listen to you. And maybe I thought it is only appropriate that you also sing for them, since you are a singer. And convey your gratitude to them using a song of your choice or a few lines of your choice for having come and spent this evening today.
Well, actually, I'm part of this group called Lutf, and I've got some of my friends from Lutf here, who are great singers, much better than me. But
You are here and they are not.
well, let me locate some song that I want to sing for you. बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं, बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं, ये धरती, ये नदियाँ, ये रहना और तुम, बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं, ये धरती, ये नदियाँ, ये रहना और तुम, हम तुम कितने पास हैं, कितने दूर हैं चांद सितारे, सच पूछो तो मन को झूठे लगते हैं ये सारे, बड़े अच्छे लगते हैं.
Right. Wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.